My name's Jason. If I haven't had a chance to meet you yet, my family, we love being a part of this community. This is my crew. That's Gretchen, my wife, Hattie, and Clara are my two little nuggets. And man, we love being a part of what God's up to here at Anthem in this community. A lot of the reason we love being a part of it is because what we're going to talk about today. And that's, we're launching a brand new series today called For. And man, we can be for a whole lot of stuff. And I've heard some of you ask this question, what does it even mean to be for? And I think as a starting place, we can all be real with each other that we don't live in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, do we? Y'all ever scrolled on Facebook and felt the tension that just surfaces on people, with people? We've lived all together through more than 2-3 almost years of incredible amounts of tension. Global, literal pandemic, racial tension, political tension, mass conversations, vaccine conversations, shut down, open businesses. We know what it feels like to not live in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. But man, when we talk about being for, we got to face reality together. And about last year, at some point in the year, there's a study that this group called the Barna Group did. They surveyed thousands of people who are not part of churches. They're not Christians, they're not Jesus followers, but they asked them, what do you think? What's your opinion of people that are part of a church? And if you're here and you're not super into church or you're not even sure what this whole deal is, this is perfect, because this is probably one of the reasons why this is your first time here. And for those of us that are church people, this is going to be a bit of a moment for us to see what people actually think about us. So thousands of people surveyed that aren't a part of churches, and here's where the top responses of what they think about us. Narrow-minded, homophobic, uptight, invasive, racist, selfish, foolish, hurtful, and unhappy. Yikes. In the better news that's totally not better, they also, the lowest 4 things that they said, the lowest responses were these 4. Hopeful, friendly, encouraging, and generous. Yikes. Man. And you guys, the reason they said this is because Christians, church people, we're known for what we're against. And I know maybe what you're thinking, you might be hanging on to but I am against things. And hang on to that thought. Just put that in your pocket just for a moment. What we say around here all the time is that for way too long, churches have been known for what they're against, and we want to be a group of people known for what we're for. We say it in short, just like this, for Gainesville. And I've heard some of your questions, literally to me, even in the last couple of weeks. What does it really mean to be for? It's cool on shirts and hats and bumper stickers and t-shirts and all the merch things. But what does it mean for us to be for? And I am so thankful that so many of you asked me this question, because here we are getting to have this conversation. And I'm going to turn this to start by asking you 2 questions that I think can lead us in the direction that we need to go. The first one is this. What do you want to be known for? As a mom, as a dad, as a parent, as a grandparent, as an educator maybe, as a student in a class, as somebody who goes into a job, maybe you're a kid, what do you want to be known for? And buckle up, because the second question that goes with this one is where it gets pretty full on. Here's the second question. What are you known for? And if you have a spouse with you, don't do this. You might want to ask them at some point, what do you think I'm known for? Because this kind of question can lead to some incredible things when we're honest about who we are and what we're known for. And when these 2 questions work together, what do you want to be known for and what are you known for, some amazing things happen. Amazing things. When I was growing up, I grew up in this wonderful state. Michigan people go like this. They tell you like where they were. Any Michigan people in the house? It's not a high five. This is the state. So you say like, hey, I grew up around here, you know? And so what happened growing up in that state, is I got indoctrinated, or let me say a better word, gifted with the opportunity to be a fan of the greatest college football team that's ever been on the planet. And that's the Michigan Wolverines, just to be clear. And yes, some of you are thinking, does he know what he's doing right now? No, I don't. But listen, I just two exhibits. One, you can answer this out loud if you want to. Which college football team has the biggest stadium? Yeah, you don't. I know, it's hard. It's hard. And the second one, which college football team has the most amount of wins in the history of college football? Also, two pretty compelling arguments. Anyway, I better stop talking about this. So early on, becoming a fan of the greatest team that's ever been, I also got acquainted with a buddy who is a fan of a certain team in this state right here. And so that, man, he was the worst. He was annoying and pretentious and arrogant. And should I keep going? I could probably spend all day doing this. I didn't like watching sports with him. He was a fan of the Ohio State Buckeyes, and it was not a good thing. I, in fact, knew all I need to know about people who are fans of Ohio State from my one friend. Y'all are like this, so much so that when I interviewed here just a short 4 years ago, I found out that somebody on this very staff team was a fan of that team right there. And I hung up the phone and I said, Gretchen, I'm not entirely sure this is going to work. Because listen, I have met fans of this team and I know what they're like. They are all like this. And they are. Prove me wrong. I dare you. But listen, you guys, I'm feeling the judgment. Like, more than that. I'm feeling the judgment, so I'm just going to put these logos up here. And y'all know what I'm talking about. Like, I see the looks on your faces when you see some people roll up with certain fans. Okay, let's take those off. I don't want those up. But I don't want any pictures with me with those kind of logos on the stage. But you guys know this to be true, right? Your perception of an entire organization or team or thing can be really based on your experience with one person from that thing, right? You maybe have an experience at a restaurant where the waiter or waitress is having a bad day, and you maybe are going to be like, I'm done with this place. Maybe you're even done with the entire chain that is based on that thing. You're just done with them. And I've seen some of you scroll Facebook, like one person posts an opinion about a thing, and what do we have a tendency to say? Man, those people are so like this. See, look at that. Maybe it's this issue, or maybe for you it is fan. Maybe it's a political party. You know, all those people are like this, and all these people are like this. And you guys, the same is true about our faith. About this thing that's been around for 2,000 years that Jesus started. People's perception of the church is you. Like, it's you. And that's kind of a hard, big thing to deal with, but it's true. Because we all know that it's true. And I could list you names and people, and maybe you're sitting in this room that the reason you walked away from faith, you walked out on faith, maybe it's your first time back in a church or watching church, is because of a person, a Christian, a fill in the blank. And you feel that tension because you have an experience with a person that shows you about this whole thing. And that's the reality for all of us Christians. And the great news as we turn down the hope train is that Jesus told us exactly what to do with this idea. In fact, he said, you guys, let's keep it simple, just start here. Start right here. So, some of you that have been around know this verse. There were people around with Jesus that were asking him, how do we boil all of this down? How do we get this down into something we can hang on to and hold on to? And this is what he said: love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Because being for begins next door. That's where it all starts for us. And I think along the way, we've made neighbor this gigantic thing when maybe we've missed the thing that's right in front of us. Some of you are in that seat where you're kind of like, is that where we're headed this morning? I was hoping for something a little deeper. We're talking about love your neighbor. Yes, but let me put the pastor hat on you for just a sec. And pastors, when they want to do this thing, we just put up Greek words that nobody else knows. So here's a Greek word. Go ahead and say that. Nope. Okay. Nobody knows Greek. That would have backfired a lot if somebody was like, hey, this Greek word translates, do you want to know what it translates into in the English? Here we go. Yeah, neighbor. Like, you don't need a Greek word to know that what Jesus was talking about was actually a neighbor, because being for begins next door. It was about 15 years ago, I was serving at a church, and I was backstage getting ready to come out to do this big ending moment kind of thing. And the guy who was teaching was like talking about neighboring and was talking about, hey, let's do this activity together. Pull out a card, draw a tic-tac-toe board on it, and put you right at the center. And now I want you to list out the names of your neighbors. And I'm backstage, I'm dialed in because I'm about to come on stage and have this moment and lead this moment together. And I'm back there going, yo. I don't know a literal single one of my neighbors. Not a one. Not even like their initials, like 0. But the context is I'm a dude who works at a church. I have gone on 10 different mission trips. I give my money away. I am a part of loving my neighbors. But what I didn't realize in that moment, what God did in me, is that I had skipped steps 1 and moved to like what maybe graduate level neighboring is and not like done kindergarten. And here I am, a dude working at a church, and I'm driving in and out of my driveway on Sundays, and the people all around me are just watching all this go down. And I'm just driving and leaving and going to church and coming back, and I don't know any of their even names. Like, speaking of neighbors in this way, you know who doesn't need help to know how to be for their neighbors? Is my children, my kids. They don't need help. They know how to do this. They just, in fact, walked up to my neighbor's house. I'm like, guys, you can't go over there. They might be eating. They might be doing this. They might be busy. They don't care. They just knock on the door and are like, hey, you want to play? You want to go to the playground? But you know who does need some help with neighboring is me. I need help with that. And maybe you do. Because I wonder if instead of making this big, huge, gigantic neighboring thing, like maybe what God has for us is the 4 that's next door. And maybe this is how we change the world. And maybe this is how we change our city. Our teaching pastor, Andy Stanley, says it like this: people skeptical of what we believe should be envious of how we treat one another, because being for begins next door. So I would love to invite all of us into that same moment that helped me see this so clearly. So in the seat backs in front of you, or if you're in the front, there's a card. The card looks like this, and it just says, who is my neighbor? So I'd love, this is an all skate. If you're joining online, you can draw a tic-tac-toe board, draw a cute little picture of a house in the middle, and then I'm going to literally give us a couple, just 1 minute here, and would you write in these blanks, write the name of your neighbor, and then underneath that, write one thing that you know about them. Their profession, their something, anything about them. Doctor, lawyer, where they teach, all of that kind of stuff. So you guys ready? Everybody get the card. There's a pen. Write your neighbor. All right, 3, 2, 1. Let's go. All right, how'd that go for everybody? Anybody fill in all of their things? Like just in a full...
Okay.
Oh, look at you guys. Pro style. Hey, I'm joined up here by my friend, Mr. John Berkmeyer over here, and Jason Carr right here. And to end our time together as we kind of wind down and continue this conversation, we wanted to make this very practical. Not a out there kind of theoretical thing, but like a very practical conversation. So, but as we get going, some people know you guys, some people don't. So John, why don't you start? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm John. I get to be the associate pastor here at Anthem Church. I've been in and out of Gainesville since like 2011, but I've been back here for, I guess, over 6 years now. So, yeah. I'm married. My wife is Ashley. She's awesome. You should get to know her. She's way cooler than me. And we don't have any kids. We live in Newberry. Any Newberry fans in the building? Yeah, loving the berry. Okay, all right.
That was weird.
The mayor. He's the mayor.
I love it out there.
We call John the mayor of Newberry, is what we call him.
Which I am not. So Jordan Marlowe's the mayor. Great guy. I'm not him. Just in case we're on there.
I am not him. Yeah.
Hey, I'm Jason. I have been you've been in Gainesville how many years?
6, I think.
I've been here 2 months.
Yep, congratulations.
Literally just moved here because of Anthem, and I get to serve as the group's director, giving leadership to our community and getting people in small groups, which has been really cool.
That's awesome. So let's start here, just what we kind of led into. Being a good neighbor, neighboring, being for Gainesville, it can feel like this big thing. So talk to me a little bit about how you guys make that a very tangible thing.
Sure. I mean, if I were to have filled out that card, years ago, I would not have been able to tell you who my neighbors were. And depending upon like your context, like some of y'all live in the country, my closest neighbor is Mr. Cow down the street, right? So this looks different for everyone, right? But at least in my wife and I's context, when we first moved to Gainesville, we had all these issues with renting, so we moved around all the time. And but before that, I read a book, and I can't remember who wrote it, but the basic point he made in one of the chapters was that everybody wants to change the world, right? Like, it's the fun answer at the end of, and world peace, right? Like, everybody wants to make a difference in the world and be a part of changing something, but his basic point was, we all want to be a part of changing the world, but we're not really willing to be a little bit of change or to get to even know people in our own backyard. And so in The Art of Neighboring, he's talking about this idea of like, what if you just started by knowing the people that live around you? And so a year and a half ago, my wife and I were able to buy our first home in Newberry, and we just made an intentional effort to know our neighbors. And so I talked about a little bit about this with Jason, is we didn't want to be weird neighbors. You can definitely be a weird neighbor, like peeking over the fence, like, what you cooking, neighbor, right? Like, don't be that neighbor.
Yeah.
But we really just made up our minds that we were going to slow down in our daily life, that we were going to slow down in our neighborhood, and that we were going to be available was like the second thing that we said, and then that we were going to go first. And so like I have my neighbor to the right of us is Monica and Joshua, and it's a mom and a son that live in this house. And so whenever I see Miss Monica, I don't wait for Miss Monica to say hi to me, and I'm not weird about it, I don't think, fingers crossed, but I always try to go first and say hi to Miss Monica and have the conversation, right? So that's something that we've been doing, and what's been so cool is some of our neighbors have become really close friends of ours, and then others of them, like normal people, are not interested in being our friends, and we're cool with that too. My wife's an introvert, so she's super cool with it. She's like, yay, less friends, right? So she's like, stop bringing these people to our house all the time, But that's been a neat thing for us in our neighborhood, and it's created these amazing opportunities to like be there for people when they need someone just to show up in their life. And so as we started this conversation, I think that's the thing that all of you are doing in one way or another, but maybe you're not doing all three. Maybe you're not, slowing down, going first, and just being available to the people that live around you.
Yep, that's good.
Yeah, for me, this is super real because I literally, to move here, I sold the house that I bought it from my parents years ago that I grew up in, and when I bought it from my parents like 15-ish years ago, most of the neighbors were the same neighbors I had when I was a kid. They had just gotten old. I didn't get old. They got old.
Likely story.
And so literally I'm in transition right now. I live in an extended stay hotel right now. just kind of figuring out what my next steps are here, living here. And so I'm experiencing this in like real time. What's been really cool for me is that this church and this family has been neighboring me in such a cool way as I'm kind of in transition here. Literally, I go to the mayor's house every other week and do laundry. And we sit in his front yard in his driveway, and all the people walk by and, hey, John, and it's just a thing, and it's cool. But just to give me a space to go, and just, it's been so cool. The whole team has been, and meals with so many of you guys, and having coffee and meals and hanging out and getting to know you guys and your story. For me, it's been cool to be neighbored as I'm coming here and learning to be a part of this family, and it's been a really cool thing for me.
That's cool. Some people, when we were talking about neighboring earlier, had this tension come up that is like, but I am against things. And not that you're against things, but let's be real. You have some very strong opinions about things, Mr. John.
I mean, I have some.
So talk to us. Let's talk for a second.
Yeah.
Let's go there for a second and talk about how are you actually for people that you disagree with, that maybe you're actually very against the things that they stand for. You have some very specific things you do.
Yeah, so hi, I'm very opinionated. It's just kind of some of my wiring, I think, maybe some of my upbringing. And man, like, it's great to have opinions about stuff, but it's really not a great way to build relationships at times. Sometimes our, like, desire for being right all the time, or having the right information, or wanting to argue about stuff, like, it's just not beneficial. And so years ago, one of the two things was Andy really challenged us. He's like, when someone would say, I don't know how anyone could think that, or how anyone could believe that, that puts the pressure on you. It means that there's something that you don't know. There's something that I don't know. And as someone who says, I don't know how anyone could think that, or how anyone could believe that on a regular basis, it really put kind of the pressure on me to, like, well, that means I don't know something. And as someone who, like, loves to read, that basically started this thing in me of, like, trying to understand other people's points of view and things. And so anytime I read a book now, and I love to read, I try to read about 50 books a year. I try to find a book of one feedback or opinion, and then I try to find the book that would love to have, like, a cage fight with that book, you know? So if I'm reading a book on, like, one idea of theology, I'm like, well, this book really hates this book, so I'm going to read both of them, which makes for a really unique bookshelf in our house. When we've hosted college groups, some of the college students walk in, they're like, interesting, you know, like, tell me more about that one. I'm like, to be clear, I read this book, you know. But man, that's been so helpful. And then the challenge then, a friend of mine challenged me on this and said, well, you're just reading books. You're not really spending time with people. And so because I'm super opinionated, and I'm never wrong, which I am often wrong, I just started getting in a habit of, if there was someone I didn't agree with on something, I just asked to grab lunch or coffee with them. And what's so interesting about that is when you start to love people that see the world differently than you, or you start to really do life with people who see the world differently, it changes the way you see that person, right? It changes them from being an issue to being a person who disagrees on an issue that you have tension with, or whatever that is. It's been so helpful, and the person that really challenged me on this is a guy named Reggie Joyner, who helped start North Point years ago. And he said this, he said, the greatest leaders I've ever been around are always willing to have their mind changed. And so that's the type of leader that I try to be, that I want to be. Like, I have very strong opinions about things, obviously, but I try to go into every conversation with every person trying to learn something, to see them as God sees them, but also to be willing to have my mind changed, to be a little bit open-handed with my opinions and perspectives.
One of the amazingly unique things about this community is if you step into community groups, smaller circles of people who gather, you will be in a circle with people who don't agree with you about everything. And we don't think that that's a bad thing. We actually love that and want that to be an intentional part of who we are. So this guy to my left here, Jason, has helped lead and build community for more than 20 years. So this is where I wanted to throw you a little softball that's like, talk to us about what it's like to be in those circles with people that disagree with each other.
Yeah. Andy, our teaching pastor, talks all the time about the messy middle, that if you're going to meet someone where you're not, it's going to get messy. And I love that illustration because that's just true. Because the reality is we're all a mess. We all have our stuff. And I have a men's group that I'm still jumping into virtually from where I'm from in Atlanta. And during the height of the pandemic, one of the guys in our group is a pharmacist, was literally running the vaccine clinic. There's a guy in our group who you could say was suspicious of the vaccines.
It's a good word.
And they were on two very separate positions when it came to the whole vaccine conversation. Yet, to this day, they're still great friends because there was something that connected them deeper than that one thing. They had a relationship that was not built on that thing. Their relationship was built on their faith and a common experience they had together. And I think the messy middle is looking to find that common ground. It's looking to find the fact that, man, we all breathe the same air. We all walk the same dirt. Like, we can find some common ground somewhere and start there. But to get there is going to get messy. And if you just surround yourself with people like you, that's not a good thing, because that's not what Jesus did. In fact, if you track with the life and ministry of Jesus, Jesus spent a lot of times with people that other people didn't like. But that's the people he went to, and that should be a challenge for us as well.
That's good.
And I think it can be the most compelling thing about our church. Like this little science experiment in here of half the room kind of voting one way and the other half voting another way, and then some of you that don't vote right. So like wherever you're at in all of this, the problem is that culturally, in most churches in America, the shift is leaning and drifting towards, they may as well just change the name of their church to the church on Tower Road, a church for Democrats, or the church on Newberry Road, a church for Republicans. We think that that's a problem. We love the fact that we have people that see the world differently and vote differently. In fact, I think it can be one of the most compelling things about the local church. Is as the world, as culture looks in and goes, wait, these people shouldn't be in the same room together. These people can't be on mission together. These people can't find common ground. And we say, oh, but we have, and we're doing this thing. We're being a part of Anthem Church. We're going to put aside our political differences, our ideological differences, because we believe that Jesus changes everything for everyone. And we're going to unite around that. And so there's this tension to pull apart, but the most compelling thing that we can do is to unite together in that, not just here at church, but in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our dorm rooms. We can do the very thing that your group did.
Yep, that's absolutely true. So there's this story in the book of Luke. We had just spent about 6 weeks before Easter in Luke. So if you haven't caught that series called Investigating Jesus, spectacular. It's well worth the watch. You can catch up on that. But there's this story in Luke that they capture Jesus' interaction with two people, Mary and Martha. And in this story, Jesus calls out one for being busy and doing all the stuff, and celebrates one for sitting and being slow and experiencing the presence of Jesus. So I just would love to invite you to speak to that. You're a person that I've observed that is slow and present with people. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think for me, part of being present is listening and taking time to actively listen and actually choosing to listen without an agenda. I think most of us, when we listen, half the time we're listening, we're too busy thinking about the story or dad joke or whatever we're going to tell next.
Or fixing the problem.
Thanks.
Fixing the problem.
Instead of actually listening to what people are saying. And it's hard to build empathy if you don't listen to people. I've spent most of my adult life working with teenage dudes, and teenage dudes tend to speak in one-word answers. Uh-huh. You're like, what's that mean?
Was that even a word?
But actually, there's stuff there if you listen, and you take time to listen, and you dig in, and you make yourself available. And I think choosing to listen without an agenda, meaning like, I just honestly want to hear you, because I wake up every day. It's a daily prayer for me. I ask the Lord to help me see people the same way he sees me, meaning that every day I wake up and God chooses to give me grace that I do not deserve. And God chooses to bend his ear my way, and I don't deserve that whatsoever. And that's the way he asked me to treat other people. And so if I could actually take time to listen to people the same way that God chooses to listen to me, maybe there's something there. Maybe I could build some empathy. Maybe I could be available to others the same way that the Lord is available for me, because we get to be his hands and feet on this planet. So I think choosing to be available to listen without an agenda and choosing to be available to people is a huge part of being present.
Yep, that's good. John, you were just this week telling me a story about slowing down.
Oh, yeah. I don't like to slow down. If you know me, I'm always on to the next thing. I'm busy. I make myself busier than probably I should be. Like I buy and sell motorcycles and cars. It's a problem. Anyways, and but my wife and I have decided, like, when we're in the neighborhood, we're gonna slow down. Like we're gonna slow down to see what's going on, to see the families that are outside playing, or see people that have stuff going on. And so I was running. I think we were coming up here for something, and this woman's car was like dead in the middle of the road in our neighborhood. And there was this moment where I was like, oh, I need to slow down. Like I should ask her like what's going on in their car. But also I was busy, But I'm so glad that I did, right? It ended up being a no big deal thing. I was able to help her get her car back to her house, but it opened up this awesome opportunity to, one, talk about our church, which was not my intent at all. My intent was to help her fix her car, but just to be there for her and show up and build a relationship. And then she didn't know where to take it or what was wrong with it. And so I was able to help in that way. So I just think, like, literally slowing down in your neighborhood. There was a book that I read years ago written by this guy named Thomas Sowell, a super smart guy. No matter what you think about politics or whatever, he talked about how the world has changed and how less houses have big front porches and they have really large back porches, which is a great thing for people that love to be on the back porch, but it's changed the way we interact with our neighbors. Yeah. We spend less time in front of our homes seeing the people and interacting and being on, like we have privacy fences now. And this Thomas Sowell's 90-something-year-old man grew up in Harlem, and he just remembers back to how people lived on the front porch because they didn't have air conditioning, they didn't have some of these things, and so life was done on the front porch. And so you had to interface with your neighbors. You had to be face-to-face with people that saw the world differently with you, and how much that has changed, how easy it is for us to pull into our garage, close the door, and never meet someone, right? And so there's an opportunity for us just to slow down. And maybe if we do that, when we fill out those cards next time, or as we work on it, we'll know people's names.
Yeah, and that's really our hope, to press beyond like, oh, I love attending or being part of a church that is for Gainesville, that all the things we can do together, which we will absolutely keep doing. We love doing things together, making an impact in our community, giving money away to nonprofits. We love all of those things. But our hope is that you would figure out how to be for Gainesville, for Newberry, for the zip code that you live in, and very specifically for the neighborhood that you live in, the people that God has placed around you. And we really believe that, man, it's possible to see a community change, not with these gigantic things, but with these very small actions, these small things that can change neighborhoods. Like, what if you fast forward a few months from now and people in your neighborhood, they don't know what you think about whatever, but man, they are so thankful that you moved in, that you pulled up, that moving truck brought you to their neighborhood. And they're so thankful for that. I was thinking about, man, how cool would it be in our city, in this city, Alachua, even beyond these zip codes, if sometime somebody from the county was like, hey, we were finding all these amazing little communities popping up where like people care about each other and violence is down and all of these things, these amazing things are happening. And we track this to this church of all these people. And it doesn't make sense because it sits outside of the typical lines of where people gather and have community with each other. So that's our hope, that you would walk out of this space and you would decide to be for your neighbors, that you would be for the people that God placed around you. And our hope is that little card and that activity, that you would slip it in your purse, put it in your pocket, that you would take it home and maybe ask God to show you, to pray for these people. If you did fill out your whole card and you're winning at neighboring thus far, like what if you use that opportunity to pray for these people, to like figure out ways that you can show up for them, that you can just be for them and just be in their corner. Because you guys, we all live in the same world together. And there's so many people that just are desperate for somebody to show up for them, to slow down for them, to say hi to them, to like reach a hand across the fence maybe and be like, I see you and I'm here for you. Like anything you need, I'm here. So we want to end our time together by just asking God to be present with us, to walk with us. We want to really practice that moment where we say, let's all slow down, literally right now, let's slow down enough to ask God to be present in conversations, to go before us. And if you're here and you're not exactly sure what this looks like and who these people are, maybe you're in a dorm, maybe your living situation looks like, just like what Jason mentioned earlier, let's pray and ask God to help us see people the way that he sees people. And we want to give all of us that moment. To help us do that, I got two things for you. The first is we built a resource at forgainesville.com. You can go there. We're going to continually update that resource. And there's tips on neighboring, maybe things, ideas that could help you get things started on how I can actually practice and live this out at home. There's even connections to some of our incredible nonprofits. If you want to link up with other stuff that's doing in the broader city, we would love to invite you to do that. And then the second thing, we hope you would walk out of this space and you would just slow down this week. Those people on your card, those people in your neighborhood, I hope you remember some of these stories. I hope that you would take an opportunity to slow down. Maybe for you, it's just like John, you literally need to slow down in the neighborhood. Like instead of driving 75 on your little bike thing, maybe just drive the actual speed limit.
I do.
Yeah, you do.
Sometimes.
But, like maybe it's a literal slowdown, but you guys know where you're at. Like you know how busy you are. Like maybe instead of just pulling the car right in the garage, it's leaving it in the driveway. And like maybe if your neighbor's out there, it's not the walk to the mailbox in silence, look awkwardly at each other, and then walk back in silence. We all live in these communities that people are desperate to just be known. And we have the opportunity to be those people, to literally be for Gainesville. So I would just love, if you would just bow your heads with me, I'd just love to give us like a moment of space in your own words, just to ask God to help you see people the way he sees. Maybe even as you're thinking about your neighborhood, ask God to help you slow down. Let's just take a moment and just be quiet together. God, we're so thankful for what you've done, that you've gone first. And even now, before we go any farther, God, we remember what you've done for us, that you went first. And God, help remind me in moments big, in moments small, of what you've done. Because that's God going to help me to see people the way that you see people. Every person we come in contact with, that you died for, that you gave your life for. God, help us to see people the way that you made them, wonderfully, beautifully created, designed with intention. God, help us to be the people who maybe, just maybe, go first, who slow down, who listen. God, help us to be for the people you've placed all around us. God, we're so thankful for who you are, for what you've done. And it's in your son's name, in Jesus' name we pray.